What's happening, everybody? I'm back. CYA, California Youth Authority. That's what it stands for. And honestly, I don't even know if it still exists, if it's still open or what's going on with it. Somebody left me in the comments on my last Youth Authority video, CYA video, that it was closed down. So I guess it's closed down. And for those of you that don't know, CYA was the California Youth Authority. And it was basically prison for juveniles. But it wasn't even, this is the cool thing about it. It wasn't even just juveniles. It was from however young, 13, 14, however young, all the way up to 25 years old. So there was 23-year-olds in there, 24-year-olds. And when you turn 25 and you get released or go to prison, but in my opinion, this is what was wrong with it. I don't know if it was an experiment or what they were trying to do with that, but it was like it was juveniles, so there was no like you could go on YouTube right now and you could search up videos from prison, and there's all kind of documentaries, film crews walking around prisons, and you can see day-to-day life in there. They're walking around the yard. But in the CYA, there was none of that. Like, I don't think news could go in there because we were all underage, we were all juveniles, but so there was like if you go on YouTube and you Google footage from inside of Youth Authority, there is none. There might be like one or two videos like from the 80s or something, and it's a real brief, it's like a real brief, like just interviewing an inmate or something, but there is no footage of the yard, day-to-day life in there. There was no film crews in there. That didn't happen, So I feel like they didn't have to, the higher-ups in whatever institution you were in, whatever California Youth Authority institution you were in, I feel like they didn't have to answer to anybody, Like, nobody knew what was going on in there. Nobody knew what day-to-day life was like in there, So, and that's what just made it that much worse, I remember one time my mom came to visit me, and I was in the hole, I was in the box or whatever, So they brought me out in like a paper jumpsuit, a zip-up paper jumpsuit with shackles on, leg irons on, and stuff like that. And I came when my mom saw me, she was mad, she was furious, and she wanted to like report it to somebody. And I was I forgot to mention, I was beat up, I had been in a few fights. That's why I was in there. And so my mom was upset, She wanted to report it to somebody. And I think she did, because she told me at the visit, I'm going to report it, whatever. But nothing came about nothing. Nothing came about nothing, Nothing happened, nothing. There is no like when you're in prison, you're in the joint, you could you could file lawsuits and stuff, against the system, against the prison you're in and stuff like that, you could file lawsuits, motions. But when you're young and you're in the youth authority, California Youth Authority, you're a juvenile, none of that's happening. Nobody's filing lawsuits, and it wasn't like that, and the violence level was pretty extreme. They didn't if you got into it in the open, in the day room, or on the yard or something, in front of everybody, yeah, they grab you up and they take you to the hole, to the box, But most of that stuff was happening in the blind spots. There was there was just blind spots everywhere. Everywhere you went, like they already knew. This is how crazy it was. This is how corrupt it was. The guards already knew that if you went behind the handball courts, which every day a lot of people would go behind the handball courts, they knew what was going on. They knew there was some fighting going on back there and some one-on-ones, That was the main thing in there, was just one-on-ones. There was no, I didn't really see a lot of I've seen it, but there wasn't like a lot of 4-on-1s, people getting jumped. It wasn't like that. It was somebody called you out one-on-one and you had to accept it. You had to accept it and run that, But nothing would. I remember I would have a black eye, and other guys would have, busted up faces, and we would just come out. We would just come out to day room. We would just come out, walk by the guards. They'd see it. They would never stop us and say, "Hey, what happened to you? What happened to your face? What happened to?" They didn't. It was so often. It happened so often, all the time, daily, that it was just routine. It was just routine, If they didn't see it, nothing was gonna happen. And that was just the whole. That was the whole all right, so you're say you're a juvenile. You're growing up in that environment. You're becoming a man in that environment. You're hitting puberty in that environment. And then you get out, when you're 19, 20, 21. But you've been in there since you were 14, 15. I heard another YouTuber say, because he was in the California Youth Authority too, and he said that when you go there and you come out, you're like a different person, like it changes you, and it did. It changes you because you just have no fear. You have no fear, especially of just a single another man trying to call you out or something in public or on the street. When you get out, it's like you have no fear. You're not afraid of one guy. You've already been through that time and time again in the California Youth Authority. It's like everybody has to fight in there. That's just what it was. That's just what it was. Everybody got tested. Everybody got, and so yeah, I understand that all of us that were in there, I understand we deserve to be in there. They didn't send you to the California Youth Authority for stealing cars or for shoplifting or tickets. No. You had to do something violent. You had to do multiple violence. You had to be, an ultra-violent teenager, And so all of us deserved to be off the streets, and to be put away for a while. But that environment only made us worse, only made us worse. And I spent a lot of time in there. I was in there from a teenager. I got out. I think I was 16 when I went in. Just turned 16, and I got out when I was 20. And then I just went back every year until I was 25 years old. I went back consistently every year till I turned 25. And then I got out of there on my 25th birthday, maxed out my time, and then I was out for a while, for almost a year or something, and then I went to prison, you know? But that was only because my mind was not right, you know? I had been in in and out of there for so long that was kind of all I knew at the time, you know? All I knew, that was how I knew how to deal with my problems. You know, if I ever had a problem, I had one solution. And if you've been there, let me know in the comments, because I know you know what I'm talking about. For any of you guys that have been there, let me know in the comments, how was it for you? Do you feel the same way? Am I wrong? Let me know. You know, like, let me know, am I wrong? But you do come out with a certain chip on your shoulder. And then that just makes things worse. You know, because you were in this extra super violent place, and now you're back on the streets. And so it's like, what do they expect a young man to come out and do? You know, like, I don't know. It was just a bad idea, you know? If they would have had more structure in there and more discipline, you know, doesn't matter if they saw you get into an altercation. If you came out with the black eye or something, they should have pulled you aside, interviewed you, checked people's hands, you know, see if there's, you know, who you fought. You know, like, in prison, they did all that. You know, like, if there was a dude that got, you know, that got assaulted, but they didn't see it, they got to check everybody's hands and see who's got bloody knuckle, whatever, you know. And in the youth authority, in the CYA, they did not do that. They didn't care. They were just there to babysit us, turn a key, put you in your cells. I don't know if the youth authority had like dorms and stuff, because everywhere I went, I was in a cell, a 2-man cell. So I don't know, you know, I could just imagine the dorm. If they did have dorms, they were probably just totally out of control, you know. But you let me know in the comments, for those of you that have been there, for those of you, you know, that some people, I talked to some people, they've only been there one time, and that straightened them out. They were like, all right, that's, you know. But not everybody learns at the same rate, you know. Like, some of us takes longer, you know. My buddy went there once, and he said, you know, he got out when he was like 18 or 19, and he said he never broke the law again and never went back again, you know. But some of us are stupid, you know, and hard-headed, stubborn, and we just keep repeating and going back. You know, it's easy, you know. But you guys let me know. To me, that was the doubt. That was what was wrong with it, you know. They didn't have to have no accountability, you know. No accountability, you know. But you let me know. If some people had different experiences, you know. Some people had, I talked to a guy that said it wasn't that bad, it wasn't like that, but depends on where you went, I guess. I don't know. But you guys let me know. Where were you at? Where were you, you know? And how was your time in there? But, yeah, I just wanted to talk about that. I heard another YouTuber talking about the same thing, you know? Come out with the chip on your shoulder. But you guys let me know. All right, everybody. Everybody have a good day, and God bless. Thank you very much.